Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. For high school seniors, the college application process will be here before you know it. So how do you stand out in a crowd of thousands of applications? Here with tips, we welcome the author of The Journey, How to Prepare Kids for a Competitive and Changing World, Greg Kaplan. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me today on the air, Hannah.
So you have this great perspective of kind of urging parents to shift away from going to setting their sights on maybe a top school, but setting kids up instead for their best chance of success, leaning into their own strengths.
That's correct. I've worked with thousands of students since forming the Kaplan Educational Group out of Southern California, and we've noticed this just an obsession with being admitted to the most selective or prestigious universities, thinking that that's a cure-all for the concerns we have about our kids. Will they be successful? Will they be happy? And so it really forced me to think about what have I seen, especially in the aftermath of the Varsity Blues scandal, where parents were paying absurd and obscene bribes to try to help their kids get into college. It's like, what is it that it actually takes to be healthy and to make the most of this process to actually make sure that young people are being prepared to live the lives that they want to lead?
And you have 5 really great and approachable tips for us all to kind of start thinking about with our high school students, beginning with making the most of the upcoming school year by working with your child, setting some goals and making some plans to achieve that.
Absolutely. I think especially if one has a child in high school, there's so much concern about what happens if I get a B in this class or lower? What happens if I don't make the sports team? So I think it's healthy because there's no magic activity or classes to take. So it's healthy to sit down and say, what do you want to achieve this year? And let's figure out a plan to do that. Because what we're trying to do is decrease stress. And if there's open communication within the family, everyone's going to be working towards the same thing, and that just makes this process so much more enjoyable. So it's the question really is how can the parent empower their child to make the most of this process?
And which brings us to tip number 2, kind of using the admissions process to inspire and motivate them toward things that could really turn out to be their lifelong passions.
Absolutely. I always tell students and families that I went to become an investment banker on Wall Street because that's what everyone around me was doing. And then I went to law school to please my parents. And in both of those careers, they turned out to be very quick and short dead ends because I wasn't following my own heart. And so we really want young people to explore what makes them tick, because if they find what they're good at and what they enjoy, as long as there is some market opportunity there, they can find success. But we need them to be on their own path, not chasing someone else's dreams.
Well, and let's talk about high school athletics and, the scholarships that a lot of students and parents are going after. There aren't very many, and that isn't always necessarily a viable future after college.
I'm so glad you bring this up, Hannah. It's the biggest misconception that we see in this process that my child has to play a sport or has to play a varsity sport to get into college or to pay for college. Only 6% of high school athletes are recruited to play at the college level, or said differently, 94% are not going to be playing a sport in college. And we want to make sure that a young person does not forsake the opportunities to prepare to go to the types of schools that they'd like to go to because they're so focused on athletics. And then I think for folks that are concerned, and it's funny, every time I'm on a plane, I always see the youth sports teams, is that only 2% of high school athletes earn scholarships for their sports. So we have to really balance is like, are we investing everything in something that may not yield a result, or are we preparing for the way this process works?
Well, how about something else that can be a great character builder is having a part-time job, and admissions boards really love seeing that on kids' resumes.
Absolutely. It's actually the first thing they look for in all applicants, but particularly from students hailing from very affluent or well-resourced communities. A part-time job is the way a young person demonstrates that they're developing grit. And grit is defined as the ability to overcome life's day-to-day obstacles. And the way a young person does that is by showing that they can deal with a difficult boss, coworkers they don't care for, or customers that make them want to pull their hair out. It's the only thing that mom and dad can't help them do either, which is to diffuse World War III when they put the wrong milk in a latte. So we're going back to basics in this process, and we want young people just to deal with that unpleasantness, or the ick, as young people call it, to make sure that they're prepared for the real world.
Yeah, the real world for sure. And finally, you say do not overdo it with AP and honors classes.
Absolutely. Misconception, the second biggest misconception after the sports is that my child needs to take what we call AP everything in our office, 5 or 6 college level classes when they're 15 or 16 years of age. I went to the University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League university. I took 4 classes each semester. The notion that a young person who's in a million different activities needs to take 6 college level classes as a high school junior is a complete farce and an utter fiction. And we want to make sure that young people have the time to develop grit, to volunteer in their community and discover what their passions are. It's really hard to do that when you're studying till 2 a.m. every day.
For sure. Hey, I love your perspective. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, the book again is called The Journey, and we'll have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.